I grew up in a way that was quite strange. Thinking my life, I felt in some ways like almost like a charity case. I came from an orphanage. I had struggles. I spent time in places where I wanted to fit in because I looked like some of the people out there. But then realizing that there's some kind of barrier. There's a lot of people that they want to be. They use rap to try to create a persona that makes them hard or makes them tough or makes them untouchable. And that's, I think, a product of being vulnerable in a certain environment. For me, it was different vulnerability. Like me, there was times in my life where I felt like I felt this pressure, but I wanted to make sure that my raps were as true and as authentic as possible. A lot of the time I talk about not fitting in. I talk about not feeling comfortable in my own shoes. I talk about being lost, or I talk about just being sort of a creative, just being hungry, somebody who wants to prove myself.
What's up, guys? I'm your host, Reilly Miner, and welcome to the Sound of Peace podcast. The Sound of Peace podcast is a place where we'll discuss how music and the arts can help to heal, connect, and rebuild trust between communities who have been through challenging times. Today, I'm happy to welcome special guest Drew Rath on here. Drew Rath is a Cambodian-born artist from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Music became ingrained into Drew's life very quickly when he started playing cello at a young age. Eventually, he began to explore various other areas of the music sector, where he began making beats as well as rapping and playing guitar. Now, Drew lives here in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, continuing to find out more about his roots and his culture as a rapper under the Cambodian label Clap Your Hands. Drew, I'm really happy to have you on here. It's super good. Drew, yeah, and I think you have a really cool perspective, offer a really cool perspective as a Cambodian, a pure Cambodian who grew up in the United States, in just outside of Boston,
yes.
Which is cool because that's right near where I'm from.
Crazy.
Yeah, and so I think to begin, I just want to dive in to that aspect of things, which is just, what was it like growing up in Boston or in Cambridge, mm-hmm. just outside of Boston, and not really being in your own country or in your own culture? I guess, what was that experience like?
Oh man, yeah, growing up, Cambridge, and coming from Cambodia to Cambridge, it's so crazy, even with even how similar the two places are spelled, and the CAMB matching with the CAMB. It's almost like a destiny thing. And like, to explain my situation further, it's by way of adoption that I came out to Cambridge, and was taken in and adapted to the culture, and grew up as an American kid, just trying to understand where I came from. I mean, Cambridge is it's a diverse place. It has people from all over the world, and I think it's so interesting to be growing up in an environment where you get exposure to a whole lot of different things. Obviously, growing up without Khmer parents or Khmer people around me was a challenge, but also drove me to be more curious about where I came from. Of course, I knew that I came from Cambodia. I knew that I was a Cambodian person by blood, by being born here, being born in Swayriang province, but not knowing anything about it. So it's crazy. Yeah, I mean, Cambridge is a place where people want to know things. It's a place of knowledge. You go out, big universities, a lot of forward thinkers, a lot of people interested in learning, a lot of higher education stuff going on. So I wanted to educate myself. My mother was a professor, so she wanted me to take after her in some ways in educating yourself. So I did a lot of that growing up in Cambridge, and I was always I would say I was a curious kid. I wanted to know about my identity and my roots, so I kind of sought that out through in a similar way as you, Arn Chorn-Pond, my basically kind of introduced me to understanding a little bit more about Cambodian history, and also understanding a little bit more about how music kind of weaves into the whole picture of how the history comes together, especially for me. So it's like a full circle moment for me, for sure.
For sure, that's great. I hear you mention Arn. And
Yeah.
Arn is the reason this podcast is happening. Arn is the
Exactly.
reason I'm in Cambodia. I mean, I think it's awesome, his reach, and I
Yeah.
think it's cool how we were both inspired by him.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, when did you start exploring your roots, or really like begin questioning? And also, when did you meet Arn? Like, when did Arn come into your life, and how did Arn come into your life actually?
Yeah, I would answer. Let me answer when I started exploring. It was that curiosity that I had as a kid definitely sparked that like sort of questioning my identity, even at a very like probably starting at a pretty young age, probably 8 or 9 years old, starting to understand like, okay, I'm a little bit different. Okay, like maybe I used to have some. It was kind of tough for me because I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't fit in my household. I felt like in some ways I didn't fit in at school or in other places because I didn't realize that culture is such an important part of your identity. So when I started seeking that out, I was young because we had actually done maybe not nine. I started questioning, and then later on, maybe middle school, there was one. I remember I had history class where we did talk about Khmer Rouge, and I remember thinking about it like, oh, like I'm actually, I'll never forget my teacher, Miss Gonzalez. She did a unit on Cambodia, which I was super like, it's kind of.
Yeah.
It's kind of rare to talk about it.
Nah,
So we did talk about it. A lot of the time in U.S. history, you learn about Vietnam War, but we talked about Khmer Rouge. We talked about this, and it was crazy. We even in the class, we watched the film The Killing Fields, and we actually, as part of the curriculum, my mom and I suggested that we read Never Fall Down, and that's actually when we got into the whole. It segues perfectly into the meeting Arn.
Yeah.
Because I actually met him at a restaurant called Elephant Walk. On Mass Ave in Cambridge at the time, and that's when I met him at a book conference, like a book talk, and then I had read the book before, read it in class. Actually, I read it before, also with my mom, separately, but then decided like I was gonna, when I met him at the talk, it was like we immediately kind of hit it off, and he told me like it's just such a humble guy, super welcoming and inviting. And I was a shy kid. He came and approached me and said, "Hey, like I heard you're a musician. I heard," he like telling me things like my mom had already told him and stuff. And I was like, wow, like this guy, this guy's a great inspiration. Yeah. And then we hit it off. Like that was probably, I would say middle school. So I was probably 12 or something like that at that time. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. I mean it's a really good age to find out about Arn. I know for me personally, like I never learned about the Khmer Rouge in school.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about Cambodia. I didn't know about the U.S.'s involvement with Cambodia.
Crazy.
Arn like found out about Arn like 2 years ago, and that was my first introduction to it, and I was absolutely shocked. So it's I think it's good that you were able to really meet him and get exposed to that. And I think it's really good that you've learned about the Khmer Rouge and Cambodia in history when you were younger like that, especially considering that you're Cambodian.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And I'm curious, like starting from that moment when you met Arn, like what was the thought process? Like I want to dive a little more into what the thought process was and what the feelings were, and how that. Was that like a big kind of point in your life? Did it kind of switch anything? Like how did it kind of guide you? How did it stick with you going forward?
Well, reading about Arn and his life before meeting the man, it's like a crazy sort of like you learn a lot of things about somebody, but when you meet that person and they speak to you and you're having a conversation with them, you start asking more questions and you start. For me, it was like the beginning, I would say, a turning point in exploring like my adoptive identity because, and also like when you hear about the stories that people have, the trauma, but also sort of in some ways the resilience and the perseverance that people that Khmer people have had to go through it's incredible because I didn't experience stories firsthand from any biological relatives. So it's like learning about yourself in a classroom or learning about yourself through a film or other kinds of stories where it's like I'm learning about it through people that are almost like family to me in some ways because I want to connect with them and I want to understand that history. So when I met Arne for the first time, it was like, okay, I can talk to somebody who's almost like my, like my poo, like my uncle, somebody who I really can respect, but also understand that we are a Khmer family in some ways. Like I felt super, almost like probably the first example of a Khmer person in my life who I can talk to and try to relate to in some ways, and knowing that like, he spoke on his adoption, like, after being in a refugee camp, going to New Hampshire, growing up in a very strange environment, also in New England in a certain like cold environment, freezing, and like being like, okay, well, okay, my life is transforming right now. I do understand that in some ways, in part of my soul, that there's that deep feeling of like pain and suffering for that I think all of us had felt because of the history, but also in some ways I appreciate that I have the blessing and the privilege to learn about it in this way. I know that trauma is deep rooted in people's family experiences, and I actually in some ways really wanted to feel that. Like I wanted to feel the feeling of knowing your ancestors had suffered, or knowing that maybe your ancestors had to do what they had to do to survive. And I'm a product of a family who didn't have the means to support me and take care of me. So, whatever led to that instability has to do with that history, and in some ways I'm connected to that, and I'm directly linked to that. So it definitely like made me realize I have a place here in this community. Because at first I felt like, oh, maybe I'm embarrassed about it, or I don't know anything about it, or people assume that I should know, but I don't. I had to go and find out. So Arne was actually really, really encouraging of that, and I'm very grateful to have had that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really great. That's really powerful. And I've thought about like your experience a lot, and I think for me, meeting you, however many months ago, like that was actually the first time my eyes were open to this idea of there's many other Drews, there's many other people like you who didn't, like, they're pure Cambodian, or even any other ethnicity, pure whatever, and they're growing up outside of their country. They've never like seen their culture. They don't know. And I think, you really introduced me to this idea of that, how crucial it is to be able to know that, and how much a part of your identity, your culture is, and what that's like to grow up without that, and then try to figure it out I remember you told me, like, when you came to Cambodia, it was like you wanted to find your culture, but you didn't even know what you were looking for. Like, you didn't even know what to look for, and that like really hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, just really powerful. What was it like when you got here in Cambodia? If you wouldn't mind speaking a bit about.
Yeah, sure. When like you come out here and then you don't realize, like, it's really, really surreal, because it's like you wanna go and learn something or find something, but you don't know what you're looking for, and it's strange because it's almost like you're in this sort of like search, this soul search, but it's a really like it's an endless search. Everybody's looking for themselves, and I think it's an infinite sort of like cycle, because everybody throughout their lives is learning new things about themselves and finding new avenues to approach, like finding their true being, and that's really tough to like guide in a sort of linear path. It's sort of like you go and you experience, and you don't know what you're looking for, and you come across things you never expected. And I kind of took a leap of faith, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I actually came off the heels of being in school. I was in university, and then I worked for a little bit, and then I decided that there's something missing in my soul that I need to find. I don't know what it is, but going to the place that I came from was a calling, and it's sort of been there for forever. But it's like I didn't know if I had the courage, or I didn't know if I had the sort of the strength that it would take for me to become that vulnerable and be that open to coming out here and like saying, like, look, let me just change my life. And I'm still adapting to the place. I'm still adapting to how to live out here, and still, like, learning a lot of things, learning Khmer, learning things, and having the being afraid to be embarrassed, being afraid, or that fear of like people not understanding you still lingers in my mind all the time, and it sort of creates this pressure, sort of to try to fit in again that I had felt when I was younger. But at least now it's more like I've accepted, instead of me being like, okay, I'm gonna come here to sort of Khmer and like become Khmer. It's like there's no definition of being Khmer. You can be Khmer whether you grew up in Australia or whether you grew up in France or whether you grew up where I grew up or in LA. You're still Khmer no matter what. And I just think it's important to realize identity is not like a spectrum. Identity is it's like a multifaceted thing where there's a million of pieces that make up who you are. So when you come here, you start eating prahoka, you think that now you're Khmer, or now you start going to the you learn everything about the culture, or you start learning how to play the throw and the. I started realizing that even if I did all of that, even if I spoke fluent Khmer, even if I'm still gonna have a dual identity. I'm still gonna have part of me that grew up there and that had all these experiences growing up that shaped who I am. So I ran from the past in some ways, and I maybe we'll get into that later, but I kind of like realized that I have to face myself and accept myself. Like accept that acceptance is so liberating, because like for my whole life I felt like, there's something missing. I came here, started realizing that actually what I was looking for is not something that like you can just find, in a sort of hide and go seek kind of thing. It's like I'm always going to be learning about who I am as a Khmer individual, right? It's an individual experience that I think I would encourage a lot of other, people from the diaspora to come out here and really experience how it is, because people here are very kind and accepting, no matter if you're from wherever you came from, because it's interesting. You open up this discourse and people say, oh, wow, like I didn't know this about you. I didn't know that, like, from just looking at you, I can't tell that there's all this behind you. And this goes for anybody, even if you're not Khmer, it doesn't matter. Like whoever you are, this is the truth.
Yeah, I really liked what you said a little bit ago about how it doesn't matter if you grew up in LA or America or wherever. Like if you're Khmer, you're Khmer, and this idea of the borders don't define things. I really like that, and I think it elaborates upon this larger idea of like community, and kind of we're all still connected, and borders should not actually do anything. Right. Unfortunately, they do nowadays.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Especially now.
Yeah, especially now, which is really hard. But I think I hear you talk a lot about this conflict inside of you and growing up in America, and I'd like to know more about now music transitioning over to there, because you are quite. I know it's quite, inside your life. It's very much a part of you. Yeah. And so I think I just want to start. Where did your musical journey start?
Yeah, it started way back. I was I would say like 3 or 4 years old actually, and it's crazy because I had like this. So my adoptive father passed away when I was that age, 4 years old, and actually he left with me something that I actually had stuck with me for and it will stick with me for the rest of my life, which is this gift of music. Because back in those days, my father was terminally ill. We had some of my earliest memories is being with him listening to music, because actually, in fact, there wasn't much of all we could do about his illness, and also at that time it was like mostly I wasn't able to go and really do anything like any physical activity. Like we weren't able to go outside and do father-son stuff. But at that time, it was mostly just sitting, listening to music. I still remember him being in the hospital. Actually, at a time, he was in a room in my house, and there was we had like a. Actually, he was bedridden at that time. Actually, his organs were failing him, so he had like yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on. I remember the rhythm of the machines he was hooked up to, certain things like this. But I remember that we listened to music all day, and that was, obviously I was like right before, that was like preschool almost, like, and that's young, early memories, but I was infatuated with the sound of. So we listened to all types of stuff, but I remember like we would listen to stuff all the way from like classical stuff to jazz to soul to blues to funk to everything, all the stuff, like just like there was a record player that we had. We also had, like, at that time there was like even one of those small, like those stereos where you put CDs in. It's like, back in those days.
What's a CD? Yeah.
But yeah, like I listened to this tape with it was Bobby McFerrin, who's like a double bass player, and there's Yo-Yo Ma, who's like a cello player. And I remember listening to like this crazy stuff, like Flight of the Bumblebee stuff, just wild stuff. Like it sounds insane when you listen to that the sound of the way the cello is. It's just like just so weird. And I think as a kid I thought it was so cool, and I kept asking to play that song over and over again. And my dad was probably getting sick of that, but I kept playing that Bumblebee song. And then which is an annoying song. It's it's really annoying.
I don't understand.
If you ever hear that song, it's like
yeah.
super crazy and super annoying.
Yeah.
But it probably drove him mad. But yeah, there was that, and then I also like we listened to like Earth, Wind and Fire and like a bunch of Stevie Wonder stuff, songs, Key of Life, stuff like that. Like old, yeah. I remember just like listening, and then at that, because I kept playing that Bobby McFerrin thing over and over, and that Yo-Yo Ma thing, he was like, maybe this kid wants, maybe it was like he just see what the because like there was a CD where it's like Bobby, who's like this guy who has like the double bass, he was like standing there in the back, and then Yo-Yo Ma's in the front with the cello, and I used to like always like look at the thing, and I was like, and want to be like, I wanted to know like what the instruments were. So then I was 3 years old, and my dad got me this like really small, like it was like an 8th size cello, which was still at the time too big for like a 3-year-old kid, which is ridiculous.
That's a cello. Wow.
But, and it's crazy because you would think like, wow, this guy he's not gonna be able to even hold the thing.
Yeah.
I was so I was like infatuated with this thing. So I started playing like almost like there were these like small like beginner like cello like groups that used to have at like Longy School of Music.
I do not.
It's crazy. It's like well, now they don't do youth programs anymore, but they used to do like youth programs, and like they would let these kids just go, and like it's almost like you have like a little room of like kids, and and they just have like fake instruments, and they just like run around and stuff. So like my mom put me in one of those rooms, and like I started just playing air cello and stuff, and doing random stuff like that, and then eventually my mom was like, okay, maybe you could start taking lessons. So like I was so blessed because luckily enough, my mom said, okay, let's give this kid a chance at playing this cello, and I really took to it. And after that, I played for 10 or 11 years. After that, I really grinded cello for a while, but then as I started getting older, I started feeling like maybe I want to try other stuff, like other instruments, because I was also really into other music, and I was exposed to a lot of other music, and I wasn't a super huge fan of classical music actually. Like as I started getting older, I wanted to know how to play guitar or like bass or something else. I wanted to be in a band, or I wanted to do something like that. And I think it was sad for my mom to see me kind of like fall out with the cello in some ways, because it's still in me, and recently just picked it back up like about a year ago. But yeah, like that's how I started moving into doing like other stuff. I started playing bass and cello and guitar, and then that kind of opened up my musical world. But having the foundation of that cello, like it's number one, there's a lot of discipline that's involved in playing the cello. A lot of technique that you need to have down, and then a lot of muscle memory, and then just ear training, and then just doing it over and over. And I used to sit hours with that cello, and my mom she was encouraging, but she wasn't easy on me. She wanted me to play well. She wanted me to be good.
Yeah.
My mom has always held this high standard. And after my dad passed away, it was also more motivation behind it, because it's like, here's like him, influencing this sort of like, okay, here's the inspiration for you to do something musical. And actually, I was so blessed and fortunate to have had the means to do something like that. So yeah. Yeah, it was kind of like hold the mantle up and like take charge and run with the torch, so to speak. And then I ended up, realizing that the musical world is so big that I wanted to also find myself in what my interests were, what I love to do. The cello, I started feeling a little bit of pressure, and maybe I don't want to be spending this much time doing. I was doing a lot of stuff for cello, so yeah.
I mean, I hear you on that. Cello, the whole classical world is.
I mean, you know this.
It can become quite demanding.
Yeah.
I play oboe, and that's just. I understand. For me, I like it, but I totally understand and see how it does not fit everyone. And I think it's really cool that you realized, wait a minute, there's music is a much bigger world than just cello. I think that's crucial because I know plenty of people who are kind of very focused on one area and won't acknowledge other forms of music as music. There's a lot of people, for example, out there who say that rap it's stupid and it's fake, and I think that's so wrong. I think it's so wrong.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so I think it's super cool that even with all this pressure, you still allowed yourself to start to realize this bigger world and start to explore it, which is now I'm interested to hear about that exploration and what that looked like beyond guitar and bass and where that kind of led you after cello.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a crazy transition for me, actually. After playing cello for a long time, I kind of this shift happened really like after like starting in high school. Mm-hmm. So I kind of stopped playing cello as much as I did. I decided that I wanted to be more. I wanted to explore a little bit more, and I started really getting into hip hop at that time. And actually, the thing is that. I started listening to. I was actually listening to hip hop for a while. I think my friends actually. Well, I had a iPod. The iPod Shuffle.
Yeah. Oh.
And it was cool. I didn't let that thing out of my hand, and I had a whole lot of stuff like that I would listen to. And actually, I used to play. So my mom was pretty strict. We didn't have. Well, I wasn't really allowed video games for a while, but I used to go to my friend's house and play 2K and listening to the 2K like 12, 13 soundtracks, and then being like, okay, this is dope. I used to really love. So I listened to like Kanye West is probably my super like early on that time. Like I started listening to a lot of Kanye, a lot of Jay-Z, and also stuff like back in the days, like even the Forefather, those guys, Nas, and all those guys, and then later on it was like J. Cole, and then it was Kendrick Lamar, and then it was just it was a whole lot of people. I loved Lauryn Hill. I loved people who had a story to tell, and I think that's sort of like where my passion for rap came in, and I thought that, because so real what people rap about. It's and especially with those influences. It's definitely like something that I really was interested and intrigued by. Like, okay, there's a lot that a melody can say, but if you say something personal to you, it also can strike a chord. It can really like create an emotion, and also the versatility that you have with flows and rhythm and just like being able to sort of like captivate somebody with a cadence. And I think that for me it was just like so interesting because it was so different, and it was so different from what I had learned as a classical musician. And that definitely, like at that time, like in high school, like a lot of my friends influenced my sort of introduction into like into rap because I learned a lot from them. I starting in high school, so I went to Cambridge Ringe in Latin, where
Yeah, I know.
there's a lot of I would say for me a lot of creative people, a lot of really talented and creative people from all walks of life. It's the part of the motto is diversity and respect and an opportunity and that's sort of like what Cambridge Ringe is all about. And I think I was so happy and fortunate to be able to go to a school like that. So Ringe sort of definitely kind of gave me a perspective and an insight to the way in which music can tell a story, especially through hip hop. So, yeah, Ringe. I had friends who were rapping, and never thought I was gonna rap. I never thought I was gonna get on a mic.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make music. So instead of me playing a score or memorizing a piece and playing it top to bottom, I was like, let's create the piece. So for me, it was a lot of creative energy. Inspired me to start making beats. Inspired me to try sampling stuff because I just love Kanye and I loved all that stuff. I love Boy Wonder. I love No ID. I love all those guys like Jay Dilla and all those goats in my opinion, and just the way that they were chopping stuff up and just making it just so powerful because the possibilities become endless when you can re-engineer a sample, or you can combine that with some crazy I was getting really into bass, so I was really into Thundercat and just super into stuff he was doing. And Pimp a Butterfly came out in high school for me, and jazz rap stuff was so cool to me. And I was I was in a jazz band at that time, so it all was clicking for me. So it definitely pointed me in that direction, and I actually started making beats beginning of high school. Started making beats for my peers at that time, and my boys were all super heavy rap fans, knew everything about hip hop history that I didn't know about, and I started learning game from them. I had a little spot in my room at that time where I had a pair of speakers. I had a desk and a mic, one of these kind of mics. And I would have my friends would come over on the weekends and stuff, and we would just make music all day. I at that time I started making beats. I started making beats and kind of doing stuff in GarageBand just to use the garage. I didn't pay for Logic at the time, or I didn't have Ableton at the time. But one of my friends who was DJing he's a nice DJ, man. Was telling me about Ableton. I started learning about Ableton, how to chop samples up. And then, it was just, after that, it was history. My whole high school career was dedicated to making music, making beats, and having my friends hop on all these tracks. And we actually created this group called Illegal Advisory, and we were just posting music on SoundCloud every week, and we were relentless. We were super inspired. We were super into making music and also just telling a story, a real story, something that was raw, something that was authentic. And actually, what's amazing about that is a lot of my friends they wanted to put Cambridge on the map, more like Boston rap on the scene, because there's not a lot of representation out there. So I just think that and shout out to some of the G Nipsey, Millies, all these guys from the city, and also a lot of my friends, D Dot, Frosty. These guys are real MCs, real rappers, and have real shit to talk about. So for me, it was let me just support in what way that I can, which is having the resource to go and have a laptop and make something, and then we did shows at the Middle East underground. We were moving. I think that actually it was I still think back to those days and remember all the times in high school where it was really, let's put Cambridge on the map. So I mean, shifted from the cello to CMB Cambridge raps, but for real, I was just thinking about it let's. I wanted to support my friends. These are my brothers, and at that time I was really feeling I didn't have it was tough for me to connect with people. So having people who gave me the time of day to respect my story and encourage me to start telling it. And so then I started doing it.
I mean that's really inspiring for me to hear. Honestly, I think. I mean, I already said it, but like transitioning from cello, where you faced all this pressure, it's what you did your entire life, and just going full circle to go pursue rap, something
Crazy.
very different. And yeah, that's a big switch, and I have a lot of admiration for your ability to do that.
Thank you, bro.
And realize like, hey, like this is I can express myself here. Like you said, like you liked the rappers who had a story to tell, and I think what I see is like, I mean, you have a story to tell. Your story is not finished by any means, and I think this is the beauty of art, is that you can tell a story through it. This is like one of the biggest points I think of it, is to tell your story, because by telling your story, it helps other people to understand you, and this allows for connection. It breaks down the barrier. I talked in a previous episode. We talked about like how music can break down that barrier and allow you to come together and have dialogue. And I just think that's so powerful. And so, now you're here in Cambodia, and what part did rap play, if any, in your decision to come to Cambodia, or just, figuring out your identity, like whether in Cambridge or here in Cambodia, like what position has rap music in general played in finding your identity, more so your cultural roots, I think.
Yeah, so actually so after high school, like at the end, I would say at the end of high school, I started like getting into I started trying to share my story and by rap through rap, and just trying to tell that story in a way. It definitely took time for me to learn or maybe just get comfortable speaking on my personal story, because it's very, it was tough for me to talk about in some ways, and I thought, it was kind of, it was difficult for me because I think I wasn't ready to be vulnerable. I had like a lot of walls put up at that time, especially in high school, because I felt like kind of lost in my search for that identity, because I was in certain, I felt like I didn't fit in here, I didn't fit in there, I didn't fit in people would say to me like, oh, I think I don't know why you're rapping, or I'm not sure why you want to rap, and I don't really feel like there was a space for somebody like me in the rap game. And I think the reason why I would say that is because mostly when they see, well, in my experience, I'd seen like my identity looks on the outside. You don't know that I was raised by a white family. Like to get into this, it's strange because I grew up in a way that was quite strange. My mom is super like, she's an advocate for social justice and just she does a lot of social work. She does a lot of work to try to help disadvantaged people. And I think in my life, I felt in some ways like almost like a charity case. I came from an orphanage. I had struggles. I tried to fit in places where there's people who I would have never experienced some of the things they've experienced. I spent time in housing projects. I spent time soup kitchens. I spent time in places where I wanted to fit in because I looked like some of the people out there. But then realizing that there's some kind of barrier there. So I wanted to share this story because I think that there's authenticity behind it. And I think that if there's a lot of people that they want to be, they use rap to try to create a persona that makes them hard or makes them tough or makes them untouchable or makes them, and that's, I think, a product of being vulnerable in a certain environment, right? I feel like for me, it was different vulnerability. Like me, I grew up in a pretty good household. Like, well, aside from single mom household, my mom was it was just her and me and my brother, but it was still something that I felt like I wanted to share, and I think that also like I would say trying to put on a facade. There was times in my life where I felt like I felt this all pressure, like, oh, there's Khmer guys out here, talking about the streets. And to be fair, like, that's more power to them. And I know a lot of those guys, and I'm brothers with a lot of those guys. And I have utmost respect for them, because understanding that experience, that Khmer American experience, is very important. And I want to support that as well. And I want to collaborate with a lot of Khmer Americans that have come and reached out to me more recently. But I wanted to make sure that my raps were as true and as authentic as possible. So a lot of the time I talk about not fitting in. I talk about not feeling comfortable in my own shoes, or I talk about being lost, or I talk about just being sort of a creative, just being hungry, being a grinder, somebody who wants to prove myself. And and then after high school, I went straight to learning how to do perfecting my craft, which I was lucky enough to go to school for audio engineering in New York. And that was another thing that like opened my eyes to the possibility of making music a career, which then leads me to the sort of like the Cambodia shift, which was a complete contrast to what I was doing living in New York. Because New York City and hip hop is like the mecca, you know what I mean? Understanding like going into New York, seeing how guys, gave me respect at these open mics and stuff, and then just being like super involved in, recording. Like some MCs out there gave me this sort of like ability to start honing my craft, and then realizing that I can take that knowledge and that gate-kept knowledge and spread it, and that responsibility that I feel that I have. Like I always have this guilty conscience, like, oh, I have all these opportunities at my disposal, and I want to give opportunities to people as well who would kill for those opportunities. So after college, I said, okay, well, I have to weigh my options. And I said to myself that actually there's something that I feel like I could do in Cambodia where, I would want to give a perspective and access to people, who maybe have always wanted to experience something like outside of Cambodia, and link Cambodia to the rest of the world, so that we can put Cambodia on the map, so that we can give people that international perspective, and that's been so eye-opening. Like I got the attention of Bong Visal and Clap Your Hands through a couple of demos that I did in high school, and then stuff that I released in college, and then we actually in 2022 did a cipher where I came to Cambodia for an internship, and I did for like a month at Clap Your Hands, and did a cipher where I made a beat, sampled like some Khmer, sampled Khmer music, and had a bunch of our artists hop on, and like that was Ruth Co, it was me, it was Vin Vitu. It was Siva and HEK. All of those guys are on the track, and we did a pretty crazy cipher, and it was incredible. I had never seen. We did a music video. I had never thought that I was going to be in a music video. I never thought I was going to be on a camera. This was all new for me. So seeing people come in with the lighting rigs and with the Steadicam, the Black Magic, and me standing there, they said, yo, like, put the hair and makeup, go in the room, like, go stand there. Like, I felt like a superstar, and I was just like, this is crazy. I didn't believe in this stuff, and I thought that at that time I was, like, still trying to be, like, this is so, like, I'm not used to this, and I'm not comfortable as much as I maybe looked, but, I started realizing, oh, hey, I can actually, like, have a platform to share this story and have people to support me in my career without needing to, like, be, this is crazy to live in New York and support yourself as an artist. You're going to struggle, and that's just, like, I just was so fortunate to have people who believed in me and, to, your own people. Like, sometimes, you got labels who want to steal from you. They want to take advantage of you. They want to exploit you. They want to do a whole lot of stuff, and said, hey, look, let me work with my people. And they looked out for me. And yeah, so at the end of the day, I'm grateful to have gotten that opportunity, because after that summer, I was like, okay, well, I gotta do this. I gotta come back. There's something here. There's something that I can do and in order to reach my community, but also to try to connect that community with the rest of the diaspora. So I see the mission, and I see the vision, you know. So that's basically, that's how that all happened. So
Wow.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm sitting here, I'm just taking it. That is really powerful. Oh my gosh, holy crap, man.
It's crazy. I had
Yeah,
no
wow.
idea that this was gonna happen. I
Yeah,
had no
wow. Yeah, I mean that's a story. I I really loved just I think your ability to be vulnerable is an extreme strength, and the fact that you know, you mentioned like some other rappers, you know, kind of doing something different, and then you talked about like you know, your story. Like this is your way to tell your story.
Yep.
But that's not easy. Like whether it be through music or music can make it easier, but it's still hard, man. I mean, that's you know, you're opening up to, you know, a lot of people. You're opening up in general to everyone, really.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, you know, but I think this is such, again, like this is the beauty of art, is the ability it grants or offers to just express yourself in a completely different way. And it's so diverse, and I think it's just so cool to me. You know, it's so inspiring to me. I think you know, I've told you this before. I think last time we met, but there's this one rapper I really like. I listen to a lot. His name's Logic. I know you know him. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
tough.
Yeah, and yeah, you should check out his music. It's really good, guys. But anyways, the thing I really like about him is he has a story to tell. He tells his story. You know, he really tells his story through his music. I mean, you look at like Under Pressure, like
Yeah, it's my favorite album.
yeah,
from
it's
him.
a crazy
Yeah,
album. I mean,
for sure.
so unbelievably deep. And so I think like I don't know, when we talked like a month ago, you really opened my mind to hip hop and like the depth and the intensity of that. And I really started like listening more than ever. I was like blown away, man. And you know, your music as well. You know, you just put out this album Wrath.
Yeah.
And I listened to it through quite a few times, and
Thanks,
you know, really try to listen to your lyrics. It's good, man. Like it's
Thanks,
good.
thanks, man.
I hear
Appreciate that.
yeah, I hear like your story, your conflict within that. You know, it's really powerful. Speaking of which, you guys should check out Drew Rath's new album Wrath. I think
Thanks,
you're
man.
you're on Spotify, Apple Music.
Out everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
Out
out
everywhere. Check it out.
Check it out.
It's absolutely fire.
Thank you, man.
My gosh. But anyways, I just want to dive into like, I guess where the inspiration for this album specifically came from, where the inspiration for the title came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you checking that out, man.
Yeah.
The Wrath album for me it came from I actually recently I had to do a rebrand. I actually, as an artist, before I was going by Amara, and some people know me as Amara still, but I realized that I really wanted to sort of focus my brand and my identity in my sound and what I wanted to share and streamline it a little bit more. So I think for me, like the what I felt like as an artist, I think every artist needs that sort of period to find themselves musically, sonically, sort of also in the direction of what you're writing about, your subject matter, what does the artist look like? How does that connect to what you're talking about, and all these other things that I didn't actually realize went into, like, you know, having a artist career. or being being a performing artist. So I learned a lot of game, by experimenting and just trying to explore the depth of what I was able to do musically. But then, Rath definitely felt like I always make music. I'm always making music. I always create. I at least make a demo a day. That's my kind of my goal. And it took a couple years for Rath to come into fruition because. Number one, I wanted to tell the story, and actually the name comes from my birth certificate. So I was given the name Rath as an orphan baby, and Rath is actually the same name that they've given a lot of other orphans at that time. So Rath, if it's like a surname. So Rath, if they don't know the identity of your birth parents, they give you the name Rath. So. I have a couple of other friends who have been adopted from orphanages out in Cambodia who have that same surname on their passport, on their birth certificate. Wow. So Rath, I wanted to represent my story, but I also wanted to represent it as much and as isolating as it sometimes feels. Like, oh, nobody understands me. Nobody understands that I have this dual identity. I come from this place here in Cambodia, but I grew up in this way, or I have this completely shattered identity. It's like we all have this sort of like commonality between us, and I think that I really wanted to speak to that. So like Rath, the album came from this name. It's a photo of my passport that they gave me when I was first taken to the U.S. as a baby. So yeah, that's my baby photo. That's my big head that I still have, and to this day, and yeah, man, it's just exactly like a representation of me. So I really wanted it to be real, sort of like represent my story, and I did it. I wanted it to be. It's interesting. I did it in 2 volumes. So there's 2 discs in the album. The first. And this is kind of a shout out to the Fall Off and J. Cole, but I really like the idea of having a concept where you share a duality, this sort of like dual identity that I actually have as a human being. I wanted to share that here's 2 sides. It's almost like a side A and a side B. It's almost like a record itself. Side A is an explanation, a backstory, an origin story. Which goes into the sort of actual, like, literal storytelling of me as somebody who has, was adopted from an orphanage, and the sort of the weight, the pressure that you feel to sort of uphold this sort of responsibility that you have as somebody who's been beyond blessed. I sometimes believe in, in this good karma that I've somehow gained from me being like, at one point in my life, being like almost starving to death, and then, being able to grow up learning everything I can about music and then becoming a musician. So the first 5 songs, definitely like In Pursuit, Pressure, Left on Red. Then we go to Seaside, and then Insatiable. It's a literal progression of how I'm chasing this thing, but I'm looking back at the same time in the rear view. Like the In Pursuit is definitely that, like, okay, I'm at the point in my career where I'm trying to launch myself, but I'm also still remembering all these things that are chasing me from behind. So it's almost like this ultimate chase. And then getting into the rest of that project, it's like, okay, this is things I've learned in order to find myself. And then when you get into the second side, it's like you got like Who's That, which is like me, just this anthem where I'm like sharing my story, but also just more like telling people that this is the rallying cry for who I actually am now. So I keep, I actually say that my name is Drew Rath now. This is who I am. And then the rest of that project is like I have a feature from my boy Frosty on Cashier, and like talking about trying to make a living off of music, and like I got Jet Set on the track Numbers, talking about how everything is about virality and trying to make, trying to go viral. And then sonically, that second half is a little bit more commercial in some ways, but also sampling Khmer music as well. First half, like shout out to Q, my co-producer, my brother, who really like chefed up these beats on the MPC, and then I laid on some cello and some other stuff on top of that, and then like you saw at the French Institute, we performed it live with a band.
Oh my gosh, that was sick.
Super cool, and I was super blessed to have those
Sick.
musicians on board because those guys are top tier. Those guys are really incredible musicians.
Really cool.
But yeah, I wanted to show duality. I wanted to show that like an artist isn't a one-dimensional person. An artist is not somebody like people say, oh, you must be a conscious rapper, or you must be like a commercial like hit making rapper, or you need to be a gangster rapper, or you need to be like nobody is that in reality.
Yeah.
So I think showing that there is a two sides to a coin is important. So yeah, side A and side B, Rath album has that sort of like duality involved in it, and it shows the pressure that maybe an industry can have on you trying to make a hit or trying to go viral, but at the same time just trying to be as honest as possible at the same time. It's like I was trying to do something simultaneously, but
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome and really good. Like I said, like the fact you're doing your own thing, man. Like you're doing your own thing, and you faced a lot of pressure, I think, throughout your life. Whether it be, I know it's there in rap, and I you talked about like with cello and stuff. I think that was great. Like, and again, like back to the whole Logic comparison. Like that's what he does. He talks about it all the time in the music. Like. Yeah. Like you can't succumb to the pressure of others. You have to just keep going, and that's what he did. And so I really admire you. Like I admire him. I really admire you for this. Like it's not easy.
Thank you, man.
A lot of pressure, I think, especially in the music industry, especially in hip hop. And
for sure.
I think I mean, really powerful album concept. And going forward and from this, how do you hope that your music can affect or impact other people, whether they be Khmer or not Khmer here in Cambodia or outside of Cambodia? I guess, what is your goal, if you have one?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, I got so many goals, but I would say that like there's an ultimate goal for me, which is with music, I really do hope to be able to connect an audience here and an audience like a diaspora. So I think for me, it's like more personally, I want to represent for other Raths, other people that have been through a certain similar situation as me. On a personal level, I think that it's hard to find representation, and it's hard for me to find people who in my view, at times understand my story. It's hard to fathom. I don't understand it still, but I would say that like at least creating a community of adoptees. I even met, like, shout out to my brother Nico Yu too, DJing on the set. Adoptee South Korea, did a lot of work for adoptees through hip hop. And like definitely my big bro, like a big inspiration as well. Create that community amongst adoptees, and then number two, it's definitely to try to connect with the local audience here. So Jung rap Khmer, digging my song a little bit, like some words in here and there, but I would love to be able to connect to the local audience here through even like you. I've seen you play, like Chloe and Lloyd. Chloe and Lloyd try to rhyme some stuff. So maybe I would love to see that connection as well. So I want to connect to the audience here locally, and I also would love to create a communal space, where my music can connect across borders.
I mean, that's amazing. I think.
Thanks.
I don't have much to say to that. That's just, I mean, art's powerful, man, and that's what it can do. I think that's
the power of music.
Oh my gosh, the power of music, bro. Wow. I mean, I think, I have one last question.
Sure.
And if you had a message, but you could only say it in one word, what would that be? A message everybody in the world can hear, but just one word, and why?
One word message. Oh, wow.
Yes, it's tricky.
One word message. Believe. And the reason why is because, maybe that sounds so corny.
No.
But it's real because everything that you do, and I think this is a universal thing. Yeah, sure, it'll take resources. It takes, a certain amount of ability to support oneself. It takes a certain passion, a skill level, right, that you need to learn. But it takes also this trust to believe in what your goal is, and I think to believe in any cause, or to just have this you need to have almost this craziness about you to chase something, or to try something, or I needed to believe in myself. I needed to believe in the possibility of what I can do with music. I needed to believe in the community that supports me. I needed to believe in a higher power, or whatever it is that got me to this place. And I think that in whatever you do, you can apply this belief, this strong sort of sense of like, I have this sort of crazy sort of passion, but I need to have that to be able to achieve anything. And I think that everybody can feel this, no matter what you do. Have that faith. Have that faith.
Yeah.
Because without that, you're not gonna. Without that, it's hard to have anything. So I would say believe in what you do. Believe in what people also have done for you, and I think that's gonna go far.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really good message. I think not corny at all. It's powerful. A lot of people, need to believe more, and it's really easy to fall under pressure and stop believing and fall into the flow of everyone else. You got to do you.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
man. Yeah, well, that's kind of a wrap here. I guess that's a good note to wrap up on.
Cool.
I really appreciate you coming on here.
It's a pleasure.
It's been a roller coaster of a conversation.
I know we've been here for a minute. Yeah,
I know it's been a bit.
Forever,
yeah,
man. Could be on this podcast for days.
I know. We could talk for days, but yeah. So, yeah, guys. This was the Sound of Peace podcast, and this is Drew Rath. Again, you should check out his music. Called Rath on all music platforms under the name Drew Rath. It's a really fire album, really good album, and really deep. And I'm excited to follow you as you continue to create. I'm really excited. So,
thanks, man.
Yeah, this was the Sound of Peace podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.